Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chet Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dite Nashtu Prayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 20th, Pure Devotion Service Surpasses Knowledge and Detachment. Text number 10 onwards. Swadharmastho yajan yagyar anashi kam uddhava ayati swarga narako yadyanyan samacharet yadi anyan na samacharet. My dear Uddhava, a person who is situated in his prescribed duty, he properly worshipping by Vedic sacrifices, but not desiring the fruitive result of such worship, will not go to heavenly planets. Similarly, by not performing forbidden activities, he will not go to hell. Then where will he go? The perfection of Karma Yoga is described here. One who does not desire fruitive rewards for his religious activities, does not waste time going to the heavenly planets for celestial sense gratification. Similarly, one who does not neglect his prescribed duty or perform forbidden activities will not be bothered by going to hell for punishment. Thus, avoiding such material rewards and punishments, such as desireless person can be promoted to the platform of pure devotion service to Lord Krishna. So that desirelessness, it doesn't just come, it comes with the time, with properly engaging in services. Asmin loke vartamana swadharmavastha anagha shuchi jnanam vishuddham apnoti mad bhaktim va yadrichaya. One who is situated in his prescribed duty, free from sinful activities and cleansed from material contamination, in this very life obtains transcendental knowledge, or by fortune devotion service unto me. So mad bhaktim va yadrichaya. So he can obtain. Asmin Loka indicates one's present duration of life. Before the death of one's present body, one can obtain transcendental knowledge, or by great fortune, pure devotion service to the Supreme Lord. The word Yadrichaya indicates that if one somehow or other gets association of pure devotees and hears from them faithfully, one can achieve Krishna consciousness, the highest perfection of life. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, through transcendental knowledge, one obtains liberation. Whereas through pure devotion service, one can achieve love of Godhead, in which liberation is automatically included. Both results are certainly superior to ordinary fruitive activities, by which one tries to enjoy much the same things that animals do. If one's devotional service is mixed with a tendency towards fruitive activities or mental speculation, then one may achieve the neutral stage or Shantras, whereas those Shantras of love of Godhead, whereas those who are inclined to serve only Lord Krishna advance to the higher stages of love of Godhead in servitude, Dasiras, friendship, Sakyaras, parental love, Vasalyaras, and conjugal relationship, that is Madhuryaras. So one can make progress. But if one's devotion service is mixed, then one can only achieve. One may achieve. It's not that if he will. One may achieve Shantras. So it's a pure devotion service. That's what we need to aspire for. Swargino api etam icchanti lokam niranyas tatha sadhakam gyan bhaktibhyam ubhayam tad sadhakam. The residents of both heaven and hell desire human birth on the earth planet because human life facilitates the achievement of transcendental knowledge and love of Godhead, whereas neither heavenly nor hellish bodies efficiently provide such opportunities. See, the residents of both heaven and hell desire human birth on the earth planet And even among the Earth planet, on the Earth planet, we desire actually Bharatvarsha, human life in Bharatvarsha, because that is the place most conducive for devotional service, for making progress spiritually. Of course, by the mercy of Prabhupada, now it's available all over the world, devotion service through his centers. But still, and on a whole, India is most conducive place for spiritual life, spiritual progress. Srila Jiva Goswami points out that in material heaven, one becomes absorbed in extraordinary sense gratification, and in hell, one is absorbed in suffering. In both cases, there is little impetus to acquire transcendental knowledge of pure love of God. Excessive suffering or excessive enjoyment are thus impediments to spiritual advancement. And what are we going after? I mean, this is our desire. We just want enjoyment. We just want money, power, position, so that we can enjoy. We think we can control and we can enjoy. But that is where Maya comes in. We think we are the controllers. We are the enjoyers. But people, this is what they want. Na narah swargatim kankshena narakim va vichakshana nemam lokam cha kanksheta deha veshat pramatyati. A human being whose wise should never desire promotion to heavenly planets or residence in hell. Indeed, a human being should also never desire permanent residence on the earth, for by such absorption in the material body, one becomes foolishly negligent of one's actual self-interest. One who has achieved human life on the earth has an excellent opportunity to attain spiritual liberation through Krishna consciousness or devotion service to the Lord. Thus, one should not desire promotion to heaven or ask residence in hell, where excessive enjoyment or punishment deviate one's mind from self-realization. On the other hand, one should not think the earth is so nice, I can stay here forever. One should develop thorough detachment from all aspects and categories of material existence and go back home, back to Godhead, where life is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. Lord Krishna now begins to develop his conclusive truth that actual human progress lies beyond material piety and sin. The Lord first clarified that there are basically three methods of human elevation, namely jnana, karma, and bhakti. And that the goal is transcendental knowledge and ultimately love of Godhead. Now the Lord explains that promotion to heavenly planets, the final goal of piety as well as residence in hell, the result of sinful activities are both useless in fulfilling the actual purpose of life. Neither material piety nor sin establish the eternal living entity in its constitutional position. Therefore, something more is required to achieve the actual perfection of life. So not just piety and sin. That's why Krishna said one should transcend material piety and sin. So now Krishna is saying, Etad vidvan pura mrityor abhavaya ghatitasa apramat idam gyatva martyam apyartha siddhitam. A wise person, knowing that although the material body is subject to death, it can still award the perfection of one's life, should not foolishly neglect to take advantage of this opportunity before death arrives. So take advantage of this opportunity of even having a material body. Chidyamanam yamareta kritanidam vanaspatim khaga svaketam utsrijya Khemam yati hi alampataha. Without attachment, a bird gives up the tree in which his nest was constructed when the tree is cut down by cruel men who are like death personified. And the bird achieves happiness in another place. Here the example is given of detachment from the bodily concept of life. The living entity resides within the body just as a bird dwells within a tree. When thoughtless men cut down the tree, the bird, without lamenting the loss of its previous nest, does not hesitate to establish its residence in another place. So similarly, the soul should not have so much of attachment for this body. Just be detached. When this body is died, of course, we lament, the relatives are lamenting and we are lamenting. We don't want to leave the body. That's why the body goes through so much of pain. Well, body does not go through anything. Body is dead anyway. The soul goes through the pain. That this body, which is my house, I have to get out of it. One should be detached. One has to give it up anyway. Ahoratrashchidyamanam Buddhavayur Bhayave Pathu Mukta Sangha Param Buddhva Nirihi Upashamyati. Knowing that one's duration of life is being silently cut down by the passing of days and nights, one should be shaken by fear. In this way, giving up all material attachment and desire, one understands the Supreme Lord and achieves perfect peace. An intelligent devotee knows that the passing days and nights are exhausting one's duration of life, and he therefore gives up his futile attachment to material sense objects. Instead, he strives to achieve permanent benefit in life, just as a detached bird immediately gives up its nest and goes to another tree. Similarly, a devotee knows that there is no permanent opportunity for residence within the material world. Instead, he dedicates his working energy to achieve eternal residence in the kingdom of God. Transcending the modes of material nature by attaining Krishna's own spiritual nature, the devotee at last obtains perfect peace. So transcending the modes of material nature by obtaining Krishna's own spiritual nature. So this one can achieve even living in the material world by engaging in devotional service, because devotional service is completely spiritual. We have our material desires, but the devotional service is not material, it's completely spiritual. So all we have to do is just engage in the devotional service. Nirideham deham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karanadharam mayanukulena nabhasruteritam puman bhavabdhim natarets atmaha. The human body, which can afford all benefit in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature, although it is very rare achievement. This human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as a captain and the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds impelling it on its course. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize his human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of his own soul. How can they say killer of its own soul? Soul cannot be killed. Soul does not die. Krishna said that. Soul, killer of the soul means if we are not taking the soul, or means if the soul is not on its way back to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead, not engaged in devotional service, it's practically dead. Dead in the sense because it's being engaged in activities which are foreign, which are not its usual self. So it's killer of his own soul. The human body, which is obtained after passing through many inferior forms, is created in such a way that it can award the highest perfection of life. A human being is supposed to serve the supreme personality of Godhead, and the bona fide spiritual master is the appropriate guide for such service. The causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is compared to favorable winds that held the boat of the body to ply smoothly on the course back home, back to Godhead. The causeless mercy of Lord Krishna, in the shloka it also says, the instructions given instructions of the personality of Godhead. That's the justice, mercy. And mercy in the sense what? It's the material world is also compared to a jail, a prison house. So we all are suffering in the prison house. We are stuck here. Of course, we don't see our shackles, but we are bound up in this prison house. And Durga Devi, Durga is in charge of this Durg or prison. And she gives us so much of punishments in this prison house. That's her service. So if the king comes to the prison house and king can pardon anybody's punishment, he can award him liberation, he can say, okay, you're free to go, get out of this prison, you don't have to live here. But the king comes, and if he gives the instructions or gives the literature, gives the map of the prison house, how to break open, get out of here, show us a path how to get out of here. So how much merciful that king must be. But this is how Krishna comes. How Krishna sends his representatives, bona fide spiritual masters, gives a manual how to break open, get out of this prison house. And if we still don't, then we are the most unfortunate. Lord Krishna gives his personal instructions in Vedic literature, speaks through the bona fide spiritual master, and encourages, warns, and protects his sincere devotee from within the devotee's heart. Such merciful guidance of the Lord moves the sincere soul quickly on the path back to Godhead. But one who cannot understand that the human body is a suitable boat for crossing the ocean of material existence will see no need to accept a captain in the form of the spiritual master, and will not at all appreciate the favorable winds of the Lord's mercy. He has no chance of achieving the goal of human life. Acting against his own self-interest, he gradually becomes the killer of his own soul. So acting against his own self-interest. Nata vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. Prahlad Maharaj said, we don't know, Nata vidu, we don't know what swartha gatim. My really swartha, my really self-interest is to serve Krishna, to serve Vishnu. And if this body is not used for that purpose, and it is used for what? For sense gratification. It has to be used for something. And if it is only used for sense gratification, which is not going to give us full happiness, and basically it's going to make us more miserable, then be a killer of our own soul. That's what scripture says. Yada rambheshu nirvinno virakta sanyatendriyaha abhyasenatmano yogi dharyada chalam manaha. A transcendentalist, having become disgusted and hopeless in all endeavors for material happiness, completely controls the senses and develops detachment. By spiritual practice, he should then fix the mind on the spiritual platform without deviation. The inevitable result of material sense gratification is disappointment and pain that sears the heart. One becomes gradually hopeless and despondent in material life. Then, receiving good instructions from the Lord or his devotee, one transforms one's material disappointment into spiritual success. So materially, it is always disappointment, actually. We win something, but then we lose a lot. And then we become attached to it, and we lose, and we lament. So ultimately, it's a disappointment. But it can become spiritual success. So because then we we can get more devotedly, sincerely engaged in the devotion service. Actually, Lord Krishna is our only true friend, and this simple understanding can bring one to a new life of spiritual happiness, the company of the Lord. Dharya manam manoyarhi brahmya dashva navastitam atandrito anurodhena margena atma vasham nayat. Whenever the mind being concentrated on the spiritual platform is suddenly deviated from its spiritual position, one should carefully bring it under the control of the self by following the prescribed means. Whenever the mind being concentrated on the spiritual platform is suddenly deviated from its spiritual position, although one is seriously engaging the mind in Krishna consciousness, the mind is so flickering that it may suddenly be deviated from its spiritual position. One should then carefully bring the mind back under the control of the self. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that if one is too austere or too sensuous, one cannot control the mind. Sometimes one may bring the mind under control by allowing the material senses limited satisfaction. For example, although one may eat austerely, from time to time one may accept a reasonable amount of Mahaprasad, opulent foods offered to the temple deities, so that the mind will not become disturbed. Similarly, one may occasionally relax with other transcendentalists through joking, swimming, and so forth. Well, if you don't know swimming, let's not do that. But if such activities are performed excessively, they will lead to a setback in spiritual life. When the mind desires sinful gratification, such as illicit sex or intoxication, one must simply tolerate the mind's foolishness and by strenuous effort push on with Krishna consciousness. Then the waves of illusion will soon subside and the path of advancement will again open wide. So mind has to be controlled. Carefully bring it under the control of the self. Control of the self by intelligence. If the intelligence is sharp, as soon as the mind starts to deviate, one should notice, one should understand it's going somewhere else, it should not. And carefully, with the sharp intelligence, try to bring it under control. Example is also given of the body as a chariot, and the horses are the senses. The intelligence is a driver, soul is a passenger, and the reins, or what is called lagam, the rope. By the rope is the mind, by which the intelligence controls the senses. But the mind is so strong, or if the intelligence is weak, then the senses or the horses will go their own way, and mind will just follow the senses, and the passenger definitely is going to be not reaching his destination. So intelligence has to be strong. Mano gatim na visrijya vijita prano jitendriya sattva sampannaya buddhya mana atma vasham nayet. One should never lose sight of the actual goal of mental activities, but rather conquering the life air and senses and utilizing intelligence is strengthened by the mode of goodness. One should bring the mind under the control of the self, utilizing intelligence strengthened by the mode of goodness. So not passion or ignorance, goodness. Although the mind may suddenly wander outside the jurisdiction of self-realization, one must bring the mind back under control by clear intelligence in the mode of goodness. The best solution is to keep the mind always busy in the service of Lord Krishna, so that the mind cannot wander onto the dangerous path of sense gratification, headed by sex attraction. The material mind is naturally inclined to accept material objects at every moment. Therefore, unless a mind is seriously brought under control, there is no possibility of becoming steady on the path of spiritual advancement. So mind has to be seriously brought under control. Mind, it's basically the mind plays lots of games, lots and lots of games. Oh, it's too cold, let's not get out of the Rajai. It's too hot, let's not go there, here, temple or do services. It's too this, it's too that, I'm too tired. It's all games of mind, actually. And when one puts the mind, that's why even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj said, every morning you should beat up the mind 100 times with stick, and at night 100 times with the shoes, telling the mind you should just stay in control. So, and that is possible only when we have intelligence, proper intelligence, in the mode of goodness. Then we can control the mind, and then we can make progress spiritually, and constant progress we can make. Okay, so I guess I can stop there. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice verses.
Thank you,
And
Mata. Thank you.
strong message to control the mind. Mind and मन. I think ये दोनों साथ साथ चलते हैं Prabhuji.
बस है गेम माइंड का ही है, और कुछ भी नहीं है.
हाँ, कुछ भी नहीं.
और कुछ भी नहीं है.
But Prabhuji बहुत strongly play करता है mind.
या तभी तो हम फंसे हैं इस मटेरियल वर्ल्ड.
बहुत strong है, बहुत ही ज़्यादा strong है.
हमें लगता यही है जो कह रहा है सही कह रहा है.
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
And yet we forget so quickly.
What said Mata?
And yet सुन के भी पता भी है कि yes, इस material thoughts से निकलना है, and yet उसके सिवाय चारा भी नहीं है यहाँ पे तो एटलीस्ट. करो तो क्या करो.
हमें लगता है ना चारा नहीं है, चारा तो है.
बट प्रभु जी एक चीज ये भी है ना कि हम पूरी तरह से स्पिरिचुअल भी नहीं है और पूरी तरह से हमने अपनी वो जो संसार है वो भी नहीं छूटता. वी आर इन शंकु की सिचुएशन रहती है हर वक्त, इधर जाए कि उधर जाए.
That's why we are hurting.
हर वक्त यही रहता है कि अरे अब
संसार छोड़ना नहीं है, बस
नहीं तो छूटता है जैसे कि घर का संसार नहीं छूटने का मतलब ये है कि घर गृहस्थी ये सब नहीं
ना, वो कुछ नहीं छोड़ना है, कुछ नहीं छोड़ना है. तो कृष्ण से जोड़ना और अच्छे से जोड़ना अपने आप. दैट्स ऑल. छोड़ना कुछ भी नहीं है. ये माइंड का ही गेम है. हमें माइंड का ही गेम है. हमें लगता है छोड़ना पड़ेगा, ये छोड़ना, कुछ नहीं छोड़ना, बस अपने आप कृष्ण जोड़ना है.
वो ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे वो जुड़ेगा ही नहीं जब तक ये छूटेगा नहीं.
नो 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 नो, उल्टा है, उल्टा है.
अच्छा,
जब हायर टेस्ट मिलेगा तो लोअर टेस्ट अपने आप छूटता जाएगा. हमें करना कुछ नहीं पड़ेगा आगे से.
स्ट्रॉन्ग वर्सेस, नाइस वर्सेस, एंड आपका तो बहुत ही अच्छा रहता है हर वक्त. थैंक यू वेरी मच प्रभु जी. हरे कृष्ण.
थैंक यू माता. थैंक यू माता. हरे कृष्ण. जय श्री प्रभु.
जय श्री प्रभु.
हरे कृष्ण. जय श्री प्रभु.
हरे कृष्ण. जय श्री प्रभुपाद.